Do not support it. Social media bullying. Stand and fight for people. And I hope with this, I'm able to convince us and not to confuse us that social media is not the enemy here. We just have to put a balance to it. Join me as I welcome the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was an insightful one. My name is Oluwagbemisola Ogumefun. I'm here again. And it is an honor to be speaking on a topic that is not just important, but urgent at this time that we find ourselves in. And that topic is safeguarding and child protection, a call to action. Safeguarding and child protection, a call to action. Now when we hear safeguarding, it's a topic that is not too widely understood, let me use that word, or even the awareness is not as high as it should be, or even child protection. And that's why we have a lot of views, we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of thoughts and even biases surrounding this topic. And that's why I would be talking about this at this point in time. We need to understand that the children are the most vulnerable members of our society. They are. But they carry the most potential. There is a saying in my place that you know where an adult has already arrived, but you don't know where a child is going to. They carry so much potential. They have a whole future right in front of them. And that's why sometimes when we talk about AI, we say we are preparing the children now for a job that we don't even know will exist in the future. That's because of the kind of potentiality these children carry. And that's the more reason why this topic is urgent and crucial at this point in time. We also need to understand that when a child is protected, our future is protected. But when a child is harmed, the nation loses part of its destiny. And we don't want that. Nelson Mandela once said something. He said there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than in the way it treats its children. There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than in the way it treats its children. We need to look beyond duty, look beyond policy, look beyond the fact that it's either your job or it's not your job. No, it's everybody's business. It is a shared responsibility. And because it is a shared responsibility, it requires awareness, it requires vigilance, it requires empathy, and it requires courage. But then, what have I been talking about? What is safeguarding? When we talk about safeguarding, we picture a mental umbrella that covers everything that one does to not only ensure that a child, and when I say a child, I'm referring to, according to the United Nations right of the child, now every child under the age of 18, every child, everyone that is under the age of 18. So when I say a child, I'm referring to everyone under the age of 18. So back to my definition of safeguarding. It's everything that you do to ensure that a child not only not comes to harm. So it's not just about, oh, I want to make sure that this child is not harmed. Okay, is everything taken away from there? I hope all the harmful things are taken off. I hope this child... No, it's not just that. It's also everything you do to ensure that a child is okay physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, financially, even spiritually. You make sure that this child is all round okay. Mental well-being, physical well-being. So it's not just about ensuring that, oh, this child does not come to harm. No. But also that this child is okay. That is safeguarding. It is a promise that we give to every child around us. Because yes, you might say, oh, I don't work with children. Yes, but you live around children. You see children in your churches, you see children in your mosques, you see children in your estates, in your streets. The house you live in, your neighbors have children. Your sisters, your brothers, they have children. You might even have little children in your own direct family. Yes, you might not work directly with children, but there are children around you. There are children in your society. There are children in your community. So this concerns you. And that was why I said it is a shared responsibility. It is a shared responsibility. We are all concerned as long as you are in an environment where children are. So it is a promise that we are giving to those children to ensure that, one, they don't come to harm. No harm befalls them. They are safe. They are physically safe. They are emotionally safe. They are psychologically safe. There are some children, their psychology is messed up. They are the kind of things they hear from the so-called grown-ups around them. Their psychology is messed up. All you need to do is just listen to them talk. And you wonder, excuse me, how old are you again? And you're like, oh my God, what's going on here? But what do we do? Hey, this world has spoiled. How can this age of child be doing this? No. This is a call to action. It is a wake-up call to us. It goes beyond just condemning. One of our speakers mentioned, he said, when he sees a loophole, instead of calling out the person, he takes responsibility. That's what this call to action is about. You see a loophole, you take responsibility. You see something, you do something. See something, you say something. You don't just stop at, what is this world turning into? No, that's not what this is about. You don't go about saying, oh, come, hey, my ears have heard something today. What, can you imagine what this world is turning into? No, that's not what this call is about. It is a promise that we give to those children to not only ensure that they don't come to harm, but to also ensure that they are balanced. They are in well-being, mental well-being, physical well-being, emotional well-being, psychological well-being, social well-being. Now we look at child protection. Child protection is like the flip side of the coin of safeguarding. Now safeguarding, some would say, is like the preventive measure. It's like preventive medicine. What you do, what you put in place before a child comes to harm, to ensure that this child does not come to harm, to ensure that this child is mentally balanced, to ensure that this child is okay. Everything you put in place, that is safeguarding. But then child protection on the flip side is this: everything you do to mitigate harm. The harm has occurred already, but what do you do to stop it from carrying on, to shield this child from the effect of what has happened already? These things are what we put under the umbrella of child protection, and it is a necessary shield. It is a necessary shield to these children that we are being called to protect. Before I move on, let's look at some types of abuse, because sometimes we abuse children and even by extension adults without knowing, out of the goodness of our hearts, but it's abuse. We see physical abuse. Physical abuse has to do with anything you do to, remember we're talking about a child now, physically, that can cause the child harm. Now this is a very dicey one, because we are Africans. We believe in discipline, and not just discipline, we believe in corporal discipline, corporal punishment. Yes, the Bible says spare the rod and spoil the child, but there is a tiny line between discipline and abuse, and physical abuse. And we have to be very mindful, very careful not to cross that line. Because the moment you cross the line, forget it, you won't be spared. The society is not going to say because you're the child or you're the parent of the child. No, you're not going to be spared. So we have to be very careful. In as much as, yes, we need to not spare the rod so we don't spoil the child, we also need, Bible also says wisdom is profitable to direct. Ensure that whatever you're doing does not cause any physical harm to the child. You spank a child, there is a mark, excuse me, you just abuse that child. That's physical abuse. As long as there is any physical mark on the body, you see some parents would go as far, oh, this child stole, then they tear with blade. That's physical abuse. So, and then they will now prepare so that you will not steal again. Back in those days, before we knew anything about safeguarding and child protection, yes, that is a good African parent. Yes, the child will not, yes, the child might not do it again. But sorry, that's physical abuse. If you try that these days, thank God for Lagos State. Lagos State is really big on this now. It's going to be a long journey. And the world too is awakening, they're getting awakened to this call because of a lot of things that I'll be mentioning later. That's physical abuse. You want to slap a child. I remember I once received a resetting slap when I was little, because I was being very naughty. I don't know, it just stopped, but I was just being naughty, intentionally naughty. And I got one resetting slap, shut up, and my eye turned red, blood. Resetting slap, you know those slap that, yes, you will face fronts. You will not try it again. You will know that this person is your senior. And there's something we say in Yoruba land, we say you cannot buy it, even if it is one day, you cannot buy it in the market. So those kind of resetting slap will tell you that yes, you cannot buy it in the market. But if that is done nowadays, that's physical abuse. And that's why no matter how much or how well-meaning we might be towards disciplining a child, because yes, the son the father loves to chastises, yes. So the person you love, you want to discipline so the person will not do that again, yes. And so that the individual will become a better person, yes. But no matter how well-meaning you are, you have to be very mindful not to cross the line from discipline to abuse. Next, we talk about emotional abuse. Emotional abuse, this one is a lot. Thank God one of our speakers spoke about emotions. Your thoughts in motion. So, but because it's your thoughts, you cannot see it. And then it's not even staying in one place. Makes it super hard to even see. So that's like double trouble. And that's why a lot of people get emotionally abused. The abuser does not know. Even the person that is being abused does not know that this is an abuse on my emotion. And especially because our subject here are children. And then the kind of society we find ourselves. Yes, in an African society, we respect our elders. Say, close your mouth there. And the child has to close his own mouth. You don't have a say. I earlier spoke about a child that was being told, you are just good for nothing. The size of your brain is getting smaller and the body is getting bigger. That's emotional abuse. How can you tell that to a child? That's emotional abuse. And a lot of people, a lot of children go through abuse. Some children will tell you, I can't do it. Not because they are doubting themselves, but because someone somewhere already told them, you cannot amount to anything. Sorry, you are just dumb. And they'll just tell you, I can't do it. And we'll say, why can't you do it? Oh, because I'm dumb. And you're short. Where is that coming from? Well, my auntie said, my mom said, my this said, my that said. Emotional abuse. You bring down their emotions. You drag their emotions in the mud. But because emotions cannot be seen, we don't even know that we are abusing them. And if peradventure they attempt to even speak up, we shut them down simply because they are children. We have to be very, very careful. Verbal abuse. Verbal abuse is like a twin sister of emotional abuse because most times our emotions are run down via the words we say. And that's the more reason why we have to be very careful with the kind of words we say to these children. And by extension, now I want us to understand that because I'm talking about children, yes, people below the age of 18, by extension, even people above 18. Yes, this rule applies to children below 18, but our society is filled with people who are abused, bruised individuals, who carry wounds, dripping in blood. Some are emotionally drained. They are, if emotions could be seen, you will see that they are dripping blood. And that kind of person will have nothing else to give than hurt, than pain. And you say, oh, this person is such a toxic individual. Check that person well. Something went wrong somewhere. It could be in their childhood, it could be now that they are grown. Verbal abuse. We have to be very careful the things that we say to them. Sexual abuse. This one many people think that it has to do with only when, let's say, a child has been raped or molested or something. No, it's not just that. Yes, that is sexual abuse, but it does not end there. Sexual abuse could be contact or non-contact. When we talk about contact, that's when, yes, the child has actually been slept with, probably has been raped, has been molested or something. It could also be non-contact. And when we say non-contact, that's where we see grooming. Some children have been groomed for years. In fact, they have been groomed right under the noses of their parents and guardians. And they don't know. You see those little, I brought this little gift for my angel. Might not be so harmless. It could be grooming. And they keep grooming the child. Some could groom a child for as much as 5, 10 years before they carry out the act. And that's why we have to be very careful. Sexual abuse could also be filling a child's head with sexual fantasies, erotic fantasies that are not supposed to be there. We see situations whereby you're just explaining a normal concept, just a harmless concept, and then a little child will translate it into something else, and you are lost. Even as the adult, you are lost, because you're not expecting that kind of interpretation from that child. But because that child has gone way ahead of you, and you're wondering, what's going on? Where's the society going to? Sexual abuse. Some children are being introduced to pornography, masturbation, lesbianism, homosexuality, as little as before 18. A lot is going on. And sometimes when you hear cases of, I know something happened several years ago, and there was this case of a child being molested by an adult, and it became a rave online, and people said something, probably because, the kind of children we have these days, probably, especially when they come from affluent homes, because of what they eat, they develop faster. So they become bigger. So because this child has the body of an adult, forgetting that this child is still underage. Whether there was contact or there was no contact, I'm not sure. But then some people say, oh, how these children that you don't even know what they are doing these days? And you don't even know whether it was one that went onto the man. Excuse me. Even if she went onto the man, because she's not 18, means that any consent she gave is invalid. You expect her to be the adult here. So if a child gives you consent, okay, come on me. Probably because that child has been psychologically messed up by another adult, or by the society we find ourselves, by social media and everything. It is still your place as the adult to be the adult. And not say after she gave me consent. That's bullshit. It's nonsense. You should be the adult. Now we look at it, and some are saying, well, after all, the man did not even touch her. So, well, what is the fuss about? Excuse me? Are you waiting for her to be touched? The fact that an attempt was made alone is enough. Should we wait for the act to be perpetrated before the right of the child is being protected? And that's the more reason why this is urgent. Because a lot of people do not even know. They don't even know. And they just talk out of sentiments. They don't even know. the right thing that they ought to know or even do. We have to be very careful. Another one is neglect. See, this neglect is very dicey. Because children can be neglected. It's an abuse. So, they can be abused and not know that they are being abused. As in, the people perpetrating this might not know. And this mostly happens in affluent homes. Mostly happens in affluent homes. When you see the father is off to Canada, the mother is off to Dubai to shop for goods in a store, and then they left the child with the nanny January to December. They just fly in once or twice in a year, and by the time they fly in, the children are either sleeping or went for a sleepover with their friends. Somebody and they just say, hey baby, I just came in to check on you. How are you? I sent some money to your account. Be good. I'm flying out tomorrow. Oh, daddy, please wait. I just want to see you. Oh, sorry, I have a meeting to catch. And they're gone. Neglect. And they believe that all they have to do is work hard, provide money, and make sure all their needs are met. And that's why you see sometimes these children begin to act up in order to get the attention of their parents. They begin to act up. Now, okay, maybe if I break something, they hear I broke something, maybe they will even fly in to come and see what I broke. Or they'll come and check the extent at which I have destroyed something. And when that does not work, okay, maybe if I cause trouble outside, maybe they will even fly in to come and see. And they begin to do one vice or the other. Before you know it, they've gone too far to return. Neglect. Bullying. Cyberbullying, verbal bullying, all forms of bullying is an abuse. It's an abuse. Domestic violence. Domestic violence. A lot of children, you might think, oh, children are too, domestic violence is not for marriage, it's not husband and wife. Yes, that's where we hear it a lot. But there are lots of children going through domestic violence. There are lots of children, some that we don't even know, going through domestic violence. Harmful cultural practice. Practices that are harmful to the children. Female genital mutilation, child marriage. These are practices that are harmful. You say because the female is not supposed to enjoy sex, and then you cut off the female organ. Where is that mentality coming from? And then you destroy a life because of your own backward mentality. You take a child that is still supposed to be in school. I said earlier that children, they are the most vulnerable members of our society. They are the most vulnerable members of our society. But they are also the ones that carry the greatest potentials. So you carry a child that has a lot of potential, the whole world in front of them, and you take that kind of child who has not even discovered herself yet, nor even know the direction she wants to go in life. She's not even had the opportunity to decide on the things she wants and the things she does not want. To decide on the things she wants to do, she likes to do, her principles. And you take that kind of child and dash to an old man, all in the name of you're old enough to get married. And children are giving birth to children. We have to be very careful. Let's really look at some myth about child abuse before we move on to why it must be taken seriously. Now, when we talk about child abuse, there are so many myths about it, some things that people believe about it that are not actually true. When you talk about child abuse, some people think, oh, it only happens in poor families or dysfunctional families. It cannot happen here. I just spoke about neglect some few minutes ago. Neglect mostly happens in affluent homes. Not that it does not happen in poor homes, so it does happen in poor homes. Where you see, okay, the mother is struggling, the father is struggling to make ends meet, and they've gone and they left the child with one uncle in the next house. Or maybe one auntie. And then from that one auntie, one uncle came to visit the auntie, and then problem arises. Yes, it happens. But you find it mostly in affluent homes. Oh no, children are only abused by strangers. Sorry to pop your bubble. Even people who know the children, close relatives, close friends, neighbors, family members, colleagues, people you never imagine need to be, can abuse the child. So it's not just about stranger danger. If you don't know the person, stay away. Even the person you know can perpetrate this very wicked act. So we have to be very, very careful when we are talking about the safety of our children. I say, oh, when it comes to sexual abuse, girls can lie. How do you know that she was touched? How do you know that she was not the one that went to the man? How do you know that? How do you know that? Even if it is a lie, check it out first. It's better that you check it out and then you discover that, oh, it was a lie, than for you to ignore and then it turns out to be true. Check it out. Another myth people believe is that, oh, once you're above 16, safeguarding and child protection does not apply to you. No. Remember, what age did I say, according to the United Nations, child stops at? 18. So for every child below 18, it applies to them. So even if a child is 16, 17, it still applies to them. So there's nothing like once you're above 16 and then you're not protected anymore. No. Another one is, oh, if I talk now, they will label me. They will say this. They will say, no, I don't want trouble. Oh. Before they say I am the amebo in the, I'm not minding my business. Please be the amebo. You're officially a whistleblower when it comes to the issue of safeguarding and child protection. Everyone, as long as you're above the age of 18, you have all signed a whistleblowing policy, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. You see something, you say something. If you don't say it, you could be charged. That's how bad it is. If you don't say something, you could be charged. That's how bad it is. And that's why I said earlier, when we're talking about safeguarding and child protection, it's not, after I don't have a child of my own, after I don't work directly with children, so it does not concern me. It's everybody's business. It's my business, it's your business, it's everybody's business. It is everybody's business. So there's nothing like, when I talk, they're going to say that I am, no. It is everybody's business. We need to understand that. Another myth is, thank God I have all boys. At least they don't rape boys. Danger. I once heard of a story many years ago of a boy. In fact, this happened to I won't say a child now because it's above 18. In a university, I'm not going to mention the name of the school, that was gang raped by a group of girls. A boy. And he was gang raped by girls. A group of girls. In a higher institution. So, saying, thank God I have a boy. So there's nothing happen. Please, boys can be abused too. And remember, abuse is not just even sexual abuse. It could be any other form of abuse that I mentioned. So, how confident are you that your child or that boy around you is not experiencing it? So we need to break that myth that boys cannot experience abuse because they are susceptible to it too. Another myth I would like to break is the fact that, I'm the owner of my child, and whatever I like, I will do to my child. Sorry to burst your bubble. Gone are the days, long gone are the days when you can do whatever you like to your child. I know of a story that happened in Lagos State some years back. A parent who beat the child for going to the neighbor's house to watch TV. And the beating was so massive. It was so massive that the child was beaten anyhow. There were lots of marks, injuries all over. It was an eyesore. It was an eyesore. That the Lagos State government had to intervene in this matter. When questioned, the parent in question does not have a TV at home. Now, yes, you don't have a TV at home. Yes, you might want to train your child out. Yes, even if I don't have this thing, that does not give you the right, or that does not mean you should go to the next door neighbor to watch TV. There are ways these things can be done. Remember I said, even though yes, we don't want to spare the rod so we don't spoil the child, there is a thin line between beating or discipline and abuse. And that parent did not cross it by an inch. He crossed it by a mile, in fact a kilometer. Because the beating was so much. It was so much to the extent that the Lagos State government had to pull out this child from the parents and said, sorry, you've only proved to us that you're not capable of being a parent. And that was how the child was taken away. We hear about stories about children being taken out into foster homes abroad. But never did we think it was going to happen in Nigeria, but it did happen. So there's nothing like I'm the owner of my child, anything I like I will do. Sorry. We are custodians. And when something or someone is kept in your custody, you cannot afford to treat it or him or her anyhow. We have to be careful, knowing fully well that we are custodians and we will give account of however we took care of that has been committed into our hands. Why does it matter for us to take safeguarding and child protection seriously? Why does it matter? We've already looked at the different types of safeguarding, different types of abuse. We've talked about the meaning of safeguarding. We've talked about the meaning of child protection. We need to understand that for every child, silence does not mean safety. So a child is silent does not mean, oh, this child is safe. We need to understand that. A child's smile does not equal to the child's happiness. So because you see the child always smiling, does not mean that the child is actually happy. Even as adults, we mask pain, we mask sorrow with smiles. Now talk about a child. So a child smiling does not mean that this child is happy. We need to be known. We need to be in the know, so that we can easily spot these things. We have to be very careful about a child's online presence, because a child could be exploited online. That's one of the forms of abuse. Online exploitation. Nowadays, with the development of technology and all that, we have online games that relate real time with people they don't even know. And you see some predators in the guise of game players join the games, creating accounts to interact with unsuspecting children. And some of them are indirectly being groomed online. Some are directly exploited. Some are being framed. Some are being bullied. So we have to be very, very careful. So we need to understand that a child's presence or a parent's presence does not equate protection. It does not mean that, because the parent is always present, the parent is always available. We talked about the parents who travel, who are not always on ground and leave the children to nannies and all that. Yes. But then for parents that are even available, the fact that they are always present does not mean that the child has no tendency of facing abuse. And that's why we have to be on guard. We have to be at alert at all times. Now I spoke about safeguarding and child protection being the role of everybody. So I'm going to be dishing it out one by one. Everybody, you're going to take your own. Say in Nigerian, we'll say everybody will collect. Let's start with schools. What is the role of schools in safeguarding and child protection? Thankfully, most schools are beginning to awaken to this now. And not just schools alone, governments, society. But before I go to the role, let's just talk a little about one of the reasons why people began to start getting awakened to the issue of safeguarding and child protection. In the year 2000 in United Kingdom, we had the issue of Victoria Climby, who died as a result of severe abuse from her aunt and her aunt's boyfriend. This was just an 8-year-old. What could an 8-year-old have done to warrant severe abuse that could have costed her life? What? I understand that, yes, they can be a handful at times, but do you think whatever handful they want to be, or however they want to be, however naughty or nasty or whatever they want to be, then it warrants in abusing that child to the extent that the health deteriorated so much that the next thing was death? Do you think there is any reason for that? For an 8-year-old to go through that? In 2018, the Topin family, this was children ranging from ages 2 to 29, were abused severely by their own parents. So when we talk about abuse, stranger danger, It's not just strangers. It's not stranger danger. It's even known person danger. Because the two cases I've mentioned have been by known individuals. People which we would not think would perpetrate this abuse. The Toby family went as far as tying the children to the bed, locking them in for days, not giving them food, a whole lot of unthought about ideas. Things that you couldn't even think about that a parent would do to a child. That was what they did to their children. And that happened in the US. In 2010, in a daycare in Amsterdam, there was an issue of one of the workers there sexually abusing the children and posting online. Okay, here we can say, oh, stranger danger. But then, is it really a stranger? This is like the teacher. Someone who has been employed to care for these children. Now we see why this matter is an urgent one. We see why we must really wake up to this. So let's look at the role of schools. Thank God now schools are beginning to wake up to their roles. A lot of schools are getting aboard this ship. Now, one of the ways schools can protect children from abuse and also ensure their well-being, all-round well-being, is by creating an environment. Creating an environment for them that will sustain that well-being. You ensure that the environment you've created, the classroom, the playground, will not pose any harm to them. And you ensure that it's comfortable for them to study in, for them to play in, for them to grow and to interact in. That is one. You have to ensure the safety of these children by ensuring that you know the identity of the people you're bringing on board. Look at the issue of the Amsterdam daycare. They brought on board someone who they did not know. Well, they might have thought they knew his identity, but they did not really know him. Because if they did really know him, he wouldn't have perpetrated that act. And that's why nowadays schools go as far as even doing a social media check. Because yes, you might be looking prim and proper, but then your social media accounts or your tweets on X might be a different ballgame entirely. Because in social media, people tend to pour out their art more and their feelings more, and then they get to work and they behave like everything is fine. So that's why they go on to do those such. In the UK, they do the DBS to ensure that yes, this person we're bringing on board has not been barred from working with children, does not have any history of negative acts or whatever towards children or anything that would have a negative impact on the safeguarding of the children that they have. So these are some of the things that schools could do. Ensure that whoever they are bringing in is safe for them to bring in. They have to ensure that they provide care to the children even before providing instruction. Because it is only a child that is well cared for that will listen to whatever instruction you are given. they have to ensure that they provide protection even before any performance whatsoever. These are some of the roles that schools have to play. Now we go to parents and guidance. Parents and guidance. As parents and guidance, we are the first point of call. Before the child goes out into the world, goes into school, goes into church, mosque, or wherever, into the society, this child grows in the home. And that is why the very first point of safeguarding begins from the home. Ensure that they have all that they need. The United Nations Rights of the Child has 4 baskets of rights. As parents, it is our responsibility to ensure that these 4 baskets of rights are not denied the children at any point in time. It is our responsibility as parents. It is the responsibility of the parent to ensure the kind of association that their child have in the home. Yes, you might not be there when they're out of the home, but in the home, you are there. Ensure the kind of association they have. Ensure what they are exposed to, the kind of content they're exposed to. Social media, some parents don't have any say over their children's social media use. You see children, little children, 7, 8-year-olds, having YouTube channels, twerking online, and the parent is not aware. The parent does not know that a 7, 8-year-old has a YouTube channel, twerking, or even an Instagram channel. They don't know. They don't know. It is a responsibility as parents to put measures in place to ensure the safety of our children online. Understanding that the world we live in now, as a result of the emergence and the development, the fast development of technology, is very, in fact, how do I say it? It's so delicate. Because the devil we used to know has upgraded. So unlike now, that a child could be in the room, committing an act of masturbation, watching pornography, being exploited online, all because you decided, oh, you want your child to belong, and you got your child an iPhone 17 Pro Max. What measures are you putting in place? Some schools are trying their best by putting in blockers and all that, so that the children are unable to access some websites or some negative things, some immoral things don't just pop up in their faces, so they can safely browse the internet. But when they go home, what measures are put in at home? There are so many things that you can do. Just like the previous speaker said, technology is not the enemy. But how do you use it? This same technology that is posing these threats has also provided solutions that you can use to protect these children in the online space. Harness them. As parents, it is our duty and our responsibility. We owe it to them. As a community, someone once said something, it's the only day that they say, the Yorubas will say, that a community, it takes a community to raise a child. And someone said, it is in the only day that say it takes a community to raise a child. Nowadays, how do they say it? Who be monster, or who knows that language? Somebody who be monster or something. I heard that sometime online, and they said nowadays is who be must or that is whoever gives birth to the child must train the child. Yes, I quite understand, because nowadays there are some parents that when you even want to correct their child, say, the child that I look, it took me 10 years to give birth to. You know, please, I once had a parent tell a school that I didn't bring my child to this school to be taught morals. I brought my child here to be taught academics, leave morals. Yes, that's the extent at which some parents go. But when it comes to safeguarding and child protection, we cannot afford to turn the blind eye, because it is a responsibility we all have to those children. And that is why, as a community, all hands must be on deck. As a community, we all must ensure that the rights of these children are not tampered with. As a community, we must ensure a safe environment. Nowadays, I go out and I see ladies, grown ladies, putting on tops without bras. Where is the community going to? Where is our society going to? Children walk these streets, for crying out loud. And I was still wondering about that, only for me to see, I think like sometime last week, an elderly woman wearing a net top that normally you would wear a camisole underneath. And wearing that top, no bra, no camisole, nothing. An elderly woman. And in these streets that you're walking on, children walk on these streets. This is like pornography, broad daylight pornography. And we talk about little girls doing this or little boys doing this. When they see the grown ones doing the same things that they should be correcting them about. And you wonder, where are we going as a people? This is broad daylight pornography, for crying out loud. So when you condemn them going online to watch pornographic videos, but then you're putting it right in their faces, what do you have to say to that? It takes a community. As a community, we have a business to ensure that these children are not psychologically messed up. They're not physically abused. They're not mentally abused. They're not socially abused. They're not emotionally abused or verbally abused. It is our responsibility to safeguard and protect them. Now, how do we identify the signs of abuse? Because abuse differs. There are different types of abuse. The signs are also slightly different. When we talk about physical abuse, I've already said what physical abuse is. What do you think a sign of physical abuse could be? Could you please help me with what? What do you think the sign could be of physical abuse? Yes, please. The lady in white and black.
Maybe some talks that are not really necessary, like sexual talks or
Okay. Okay. I think I would classify that under sexual abuse. So remember, for physical abuse, we talked about physically harming a child. So what do you think the signs could be? A wound. You suddenly see a child that you've not been seeing the injury on, and then the child suddenly has, let's say, a straight line here. And probably the child is wearing something to cover it. And then you say, hey, hello. Hey. Like, are you okay? Can I see? And then you see a wound, a very big one. What happened to you? And this child is not telling you they fell or they hit. They could even say they fell anyways. But then, we have to be at alert. Could it have been a fall? There are children that we know can be so playful. And if you naturally see those kind of signs or marks on them, you will say, hey, even before they tell you, you know that I've always said you will enjoy yourself one day with your play, with your rough play. But there are children you know that this child does not play rough. Or even if they play rough, there are some that even though they play rough, it could still be an abuse. And that is why we don't just assume. The speaker mentioned that assumption is the lowest form of intelligence. So we can't just assume. So even if the child is that playful child, it might not be from play. It could be from abuse. So you see some funny marks on children, and you're wondering, where is this coming from? It could be a sign of physical abuse. When we talk about emotional abuse, remember we talked about emotional abuse, the signs do not really show because these are emotions. But then there are ways to be able to identify that this child could be emotionally abused. You see a child suddenly withdrawing. You see a child talking down at themselves. You see a child feeling low or feeling less of themselves. You see a child that's what, a vibrant child, a once vibrant child, suddenly withdraw. And you're wondering, what could be wrong? What's going on? It could be a sign of emotional abuse. It could be a sign of emotional abuse. When we look at behavior of a child, some children could suddenly begin to act up. Now, in one of the trainings I attended some time ago, they mentioned that when we're talking about behavioral management, especially in classrooms, where you have low-level disruptions and co. You have some children that disrupt the classrooms or even any social gathering they find themselves. And you're like, are you the only one? Can't you look deeply? That behavioral disruption is a call for help. The child is calling for help. I need help. But because they don't know how else to seek help, some children will naturally come to you. I'm going through this. Can I speak to you? I don't have a good day. Or I'm not feeling too well. Or I'm going through this. Some will naturally come to you. But most will not. Most will not come to you. But instead, they will indirectly ask for help. So sometimes these behavioral patterns, this disturbance, stubbornness, and what not, could be a silent call for help. So when a child is being too disruptive, we shouldn't be quick to assume that this child is just a stubborn child. Ironically, the child could actually be a soft child who is breaking down and almost at the edge of complete breakdown and seeking desperately for help. To a falling man, to a drowning man, even if you give the person a tiny thread, he would grasp for it, even though he knows that he can't save him. That's what that child is doing. So we need to be at alert. we need to be at alert. We need to see these children, see them, and not their actions. We need to actually see them. That's where empathy comes in. We need to see them and think from their own angle. And that's how we're able to really recognize these signs. Signs of sexual abuse. A child suddenly, I mentioned earlier that you're talking about a totally different concept or topic, and a child suddenly gives a sample that is sexualized, and you're wondering from where to where. How? How? Because even when you are teaching things that have to do with sexual or whatever, or body parts or something, I know that we try to be conservative. We try to give it to them according to their age. But you are giving A to C, and the child has already gone to J. And ordinarily for that child's level, the child should only know A to C. You know that there is a problem somewhere. This child has been sexually abused. It might not be contact. Remember, sexual abuse is not just about contact. It could be non-contact. But these are signs. Or a child suddenly comes and says, oh, I'm not feeling too well in my private area. That could be a major sign of contact abuse, contact sexual abuse. We have to be very alert. Neglect. I remember when I was talking about neglect, I talked about neglect happening also in affluent homes. So you can't just say, oh, this child is the son of the president of my community development area. So because of that, the parents have money. It cannot be neglected. Sorry. What if the child is being given to the nannies, and all the nannies do is take care of themselves and not the child? What if? What if there's some children that even believe that they are superior to the nannies? So you can't even tell, they'll tell the nanny, I can sack you. And the nanny knows they can sack them. So the nanny will just mind, I don't want to be sacked, so I will just mind my business. So anything you like, you do. You're on your own, as long as I'm not sacked. That's indirect neglect. A child comes to school looking so unkempt, scruffled up. These are signs of neglect. I learned of a student sometime last year. I didn't teach the student personally, but I learned of the student, and the child was always doing poorly in class. This is a child that does well before, but began to do poorly. And then when the teacher began to probe into the matter, and that's why we have to be at alert, the teacher noticed and began to probe into the matter. And the teacher discovered that this child has not been taking breakfast. Breakfast. The child still comes to school with food, still comes with snacks, still comes with fruits and everything, but breakfast is not given at home. So because the child now has to wait from early morning till break to eat, you see, from that time to break before eating is wasted. Nothing will enter the head. Because my people will say, hunger will not enter the stomach, and another thing will enter. I cannot be hungry, and then you're telling me something else, and it will enter. It will not enter anywhere. And that child was and you know how schools run. Most of the mentally, most of these subjects that require a lot of mental work are put in the morning, because they believe that that's when the students are in their top form. Before midday, where they've gone to play and they're beginning to wind down. So they just put all those maybe discussion topics, subjects that they just have fun, discuss and all that. But those subjects that require a lot of mental activity are put earlier in the day. And this child was doing poorly, because he did not have the fuel to power the engine that will power the mental thinking, the mental process. The tank was empty. something as simple as breakfast. And they say, but he brought food to school. He has snacks, he's gone back his field. Yes, but is his stomach filled? Feed him from home. And the moment he was fed from home, before coming to school, there was a drastic change. Because the powerhouse began to run again, began to work. And that's how simple it is to overlook neglect. For that kind of child, if the teacher had not been at alert, she would have dismissed it that this child is being neglected. Because the child comes with filled box. It's filled. So how can you say this child is neglected? She would not even have thought that this child does not take breakfast. Because how do you want to explain it? My box is full. How do you want to explain it? But thank God that she was at alert. Now, apart from spotting all these signs, it is highly important that we also listen to these children. It is important that we listen to them. Because like I said earlier, sometimes these children will come on their own accord. They will come to you. Can I speak to you about something? And you don't even know that they're about to drop a bombshell on your lap. You think, they just want to tell you, probably, this person hit me. And they want to tell you something heavy. That they've been thinking in their head, who can I trust? Who can I trust? Who can I tell? Who can I speak this to? Because most times, abusers, especially those who intentionally abuse, they scare them to secrecy. Some threaten them to secrecy. So they carry it in their minds for so long until they cannot carry it anymore and they need someone to share that burden with. And imagine that you've been carrying a heavy load for so long, looking for someone to help you down, and you finally see someone and the person says, sorry, I'm very busy. How would you feel? Think about it. That's exactly how that child would feel at that point. And that's the more reason why we need to listen to them. We need to listen. We need to listen to them. And children talk in diverse ways. It's not all of them that will come to you to actually talk. Some it could be through drawings. I saw a movie several years ago about a child that was being abused. Physically, mentally, name the kind of abuse. Maybe apart from sexual. But any other type of abuse that you can mention. And then maybe we'll take out the online. Any other type of abuse you can mention. She was being abused by her stepmother. But when the father comes, she behaves like the lovey-dovey stepmother to her. But the moment the father steps out, and unfortunately for the girl, the father was not always at home. He knew he was not going to be always at home. He did not want the issue of neglect to occur. That was why he chose to marry and again. So she could take care of her. But she failed. And this girl did not know who to speak to, because whenever she tries to speak to her father, the woman would come and do all her acts. And then when she was finally able to speak to the man, he did not believe, because what he was seeing was not correlating to what she was saying. How? So he was discarded. But one day, remember it was a movie, one day a little girl suddenly walked into the home of a couple. They were being very kind to her. Who are you? This and that. Oh, I can't remember who I am. I can't remember my home, this and that. So they took her in, took care of her while they were in the process of looking for her parents. So when they finally found her parents, She was this child that loves to draw. So because she loves to draw, the couple she met bought her lots of art supplies and all that. Oh, you love to draw. We're going to buy you art supplies. They bought her art supplies because they didn't have children of their own, so they took care of her like their own child. Bought her beautiful art supplies. She kept drawing and drawing, and they made sure all her needs were met. And then suddenly one day they came across her parents. They're like, "Oh, are you the father of this?" You know, from the father's advert of missing person, something, they were able to trace her parents. And when they met, "Oh, we have your daughter in our house. Oh, please come." They got to the house, they couldn't find the girl. And they were wondering what's happening. She was right here. Where could she have gone? Where could she be? And to cut the long story short, from her drawings, they discovered that she had been severely abused. Severely abused. From her drawings. And they also discovered that the stepmother had one day locked her up in the freezer. So by the time they went back home to the father's home, right inside the freezer, they found her body frozen. So it was apparently her spirit that went to the other couple. It was the ghost that they were taking care of. Yes, it's a movie. We might say, "Oh, I don't believe in ghosts, I don't believe in spirits and all that." But let's not neglect the part of a little child being severely abused in her home. A home where she should receive love, where she should receive care. She was abused. And the abuse was discovered only via our art. Children talk in different ways. Some could just write it as a story. I remember one of my students one day, we were writing a different write-up entirely. In fact, we were writing a fantasy story. It was a fantasy story, a story about magical creatures and all that and all that. And this child suddenly wrote about friends bullying him, calling him fat, and all that and all that. As a teacher, I could have been tempted to say, "Well, this is not what I said you should do. But this is out of the end of the learning objective. But this is not, but this is not." But it struck me. This is a case of abuse. I have to do something. And I had to look off the fact that the child had not written for me what I wanted him to write. But he had written for me something very crucial. And that was more important at that time than whatsoever it is I might have wanted him to write. Because when it comes to the case of a child, care is much more important than instruction. We have to first care for them, even before we think about the instruction. I talked about digital safeguarding. So in as much as we're putting all these methods in place to ensure that these children are safeguarded, we also have to understand that abuse happens online. Put in place measures. There are apps that you can use to control your children's phones. Before it used to be up to 13 years, but now even beyond 13, you can still control it. You know everything that happens. If you feel like, "Oh, this child is having too many screen time," you can decide to lock that device from your own device. You don't have to be there. You can say, okay, you're not allowed on so app for more than 30 minutes. You're not allowed to play game for more than 5 minutes. You can put these things in place. There are measures you can put in place even on your Google, on your Chrome browser, that some things will not naturally pop up for your child or even for you. You save them. It's not that your child wants to do an assignment. Mommy, can I use your phone for my assignment? And then an illicit picture just suddenly pops up in your eyes. And you're wondering, what's going on? I don't watch porn. I don't search for anything illegal online. Where is this coming from? But then, there are measures to be put in place. We need to, if it's something we cannot do on our own, let's meet experts to help us with this. We have a lot of tech guys in our society. Please help me put this in place. The amount it will cost you to safeguard them digitally will be far cheaper compared to the amount it will cost you to do child protection. Because child protection is a curative measure. And we see even adults who went through abuse long ago when they were little, and the abuse still affects them till date. Saw a movie about a lady that was bullied while she was in school, and because of the fact that she was bullied, she was a very smart student that had a dream of becoming a lawyer or a doctor. But because of the bullying, she could not focus on the studies, and she became a dropout. In the end, she became a killer and had to bully another child who had grown up to become a lawyer, that you must represent me. I know you were not one of my bullies, but you were a bystander. You could have done something to protect me, but you did not do anything. You could have said something. Remember we talked about see something, say something. You could have said something that would shield me, and in turn shield my future. I had a dream to become a doctor, to become a lawyer. I could have been the lawyer in your shoes now. It might not have been you, because I was the best student. But you were only able to become the best student because I was taken out of the picture via bullies. So now it is your turn to make sure I don't go to jail. It was a very messy situation. But then I looked at it. Yes, she was able to save her from going to jail. She was able to speak on her behalf, letting the judge know all the things she went through. Yes, she was able to reduce her sentence and all that. But then, does that return the future that has been stolen from her? I know they say yes, it's not too late to start. Yes, it's not too late to start. But can that time that has been stolen, can it be given back to her on a platter? It can't be given back. That time is gone, and it's forever gone. And that's the more reason why we need to start now. It is urgent. It's an urgent call to action. We need to start now, right now. Because tomorrow will be too late. Now let's see safeguarding as leadership. As a leader of wherever you find yourself, as a leader, it takes a courage to act. Yes, it takes courage to really act. But you have to act. You have to act. You have to put in place measures. Some schools are even putting in place whistleblowing measures. If you don't want to come to me, go to it. If you feel that you don't want to come to us, they have the safeguarding lead. They have the deputy safeguarding lead. That once safeguarding matters come up, because it's not a matter that you have to tell everybody. Go straight to either the DSL or the DDSL. Speak to them. Now, if you feel like they're not taking the matter the way they ought to, because they ought to take up the matter, and they also know the right authorities to speak with, to work with, to settle the matter, to make sure that there is no issue. But if they don't, if you feel like they are not handling this matter the way they should handle the matter, there are whistleblowing policies. You can speak to an external body anonymously, and it will be handled. As a leader, you have to properly train your staff. I talked about the DDSL, the DSL. You need to train your staff. If it's the designated safeguarding lead, the person needs to receive enough training to know what to do in the case of safeguarding or even child protection issues. They need to know the right bodies to call, to work with when an issue arises. Because we cannot say, oh, it cannot happen here. Those places that it happens, they don't have two heads. It can happen anywhere. It can happen to anybody. And it can happen at any time. So you need to properly train your staff. The ones that are not the DSL or the DDSL, they should know how to identify the signs. We already talked about identifying the signs. They should know how to identify the signs. They should know what to do immediately after identifying the signs. When a child comes, makes a disclosure, they should know how to question the child. You cannot afford to be asking leading questions. I feel pains in my private part. Did anybody sleep with you? That's a leading question. You should not be asking that. What happened to you? Tell me exactly how it happened. And you take notes. Or you make a mental calculation. Or a mental note about it. But you don't ask the child like you're interviewing the child. You don't put ideas into the child's head. You let the child relate the story to you exactly how they can. Not from you. Don't give them ideas. Don't supply them vocabulary. But these things are only known through trainings. Properly train your staff. Cultural sensitivity. I was taught in a school where, in fact, it's a country where boys are put in a different class and girls are put in a different class. And when I got there, because in my own country, it's either you have boys school, girls school. Finish. You won't have a mixed school, and then boys will be in different class and girls will be in different class. And then, in my own country, they will tell you, don't hug a child, but you can simply give high five. High five is safe. But over there, you cannot, as a female, you cannot give a male high five. You cannot even make skin contacts. You can't. That's where cultural sensitivity comes in. You have to know what this culture says and what this culture says. There's one funny thing I learned online. That in a particular culture, when they give you food and you finish it, the host is very happy. He enjoyed my food. In a different culture, they give you food and you finish it. They also look at you like this. This person must be a good one. Now, can you see? Where cultural sensitivity matters. Because if you're coming from a culture where you have to finish the food and you get to the other culture, they're looking at you like this. Who is this person? Where is he from? Does he not eat at home? Or you're coming from this other culture and you come here and you don't finish the food. Like, this person is so wasteful. You just notice that the next time you visit them, they won't offer you food. And it's not that they are being wicked. They just don't want you to waste their food. Not knowing that you actually did not know. Another one. In a particular culture, if they serve you tea, you drink pim and pepper. No sound. Another culture, you have to slop. Because if you don't slop, she can look at you like this. I don't think she likes this tea. I don't think she enjoyed it. But when you slop, she enjoyed it. Do you want more? But in this other culture, if you slop, where's she from? Cultural sensitivity. The world has become a global village. And that's the more reason why we need to understand the culture, the traditions of the other party, of other people. So we know how best to help them. So that in the aspect of, in the process of helping, we don't buy markets. You know what Yoruba will say, buy markets. You don't fall into trouble. And it will just be an innocent blunder. But that could cause a lot of trouble. We don't want that. So a leader has to be sensitive, culturally sensitive. A leader has to build strong policies that ensure the well-being of the child. They need to let the children know that they are heard. They are seen. We see you. We hear you. We feel your pain. Whatever you say to it, we understand. They need to build strong policies to protect the children. Accountability. They need to hold themselves, the workers that work with them, with the children, the entire process that they have set up. They need to hold them accountable to ensure that these children are actually well cared for. Now let's look at safeguarding as emotional well-being. I already talked about safeguarding not being only protection of the child from harm. No, it's not. It's not just protection of the child from harm. You're protecting the child from harm, yes. But you're also ensuring that this child is okay mentally, physically, psychologically, sexually, socially. The child is okay. There are some children, their parents will only tell them, go and read, go and read, go and read, go and read. Social skills, zero. They cannot make friends. On the playground, you will see them. And the teacher said, you don't want to play? I don't feel like playing. I don't want to go for break. Can I just please stay in class and read a book? Can I just draw? Can I just go and play, mix? They can't. Social skills, zero. But when it comes to academics, they are flying. No. That's not a well-rounded child. We owe them to be well-rounded. And we need to understand that an emotionally balanced child is usually more expressive. They're more expressive. That's why sometimes you see some children, you will ask yourself, wait, are we playing 21 questions? Because as they're asking one, you've not finished answering that one, they're asking another, auntie, this, uncle, this, and they are just bombarding you. They're curious, their minds are still, they are still at alert, their minds are still vibrant. They've not been clouded or brought down by the burden of abuse. Emotionally balanced children are more expressive. We need children who are socially stable. We need children who are resilient. Children who are willing to learn, who are more confident, and all these things can only be gotten when those children are well safeguarded. That's how they can only be gotten. When they are well safeguarded. And that's why our policies must be strong. And we must be consistent with it. Because that's when we actually give these children the true freedom that they deserve. Now, this is a call to everyone. We've already talked about where we all come in. This is a giant jigsaw puzzle where everyone's input makes it a full picture. And now everyone knows what they need to do to ensure that we have a beautiful picture. When there is strong safeguarding and child protection culture, the children flourish. They naturally flourish. And we need to remember that it is our duty, it is our responsibility, and it is what we can give to them as humans. Let's remember that children are gifts. They are gifts from God. And they are the carriers of tomorrow's hopes. The dreams of tomorrow, the innovation of tomorrow, the leadership of tomorrow, everything lies on these children. So every child deserves love. Every child deserves protection. Every child deserves dignity. And every child deserves safety. Let's remember one more time what Nelson Mandela said. He said there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than in the way it treats its children. We need to keep this in mind. The way we treat our children. A society's soul must be pure. It must be compassionate and it must be protective of these children. Our homes must be a safe haven for these children to dwell in. Our schools must be a shield that protects these children from any form of abuse. Our community must become guardians. It's not a matter of who be master. It's not a matter of every man to his own. No. We must become guidance. Now we need to also remember that when we're talking about safeguarding and child protection, we're not just talking about about policies. It's not just about policies being put in place. No. We're talking about moral responsibility. We're talking about acts of humanity. We're talking about building a foundation for a safe world. It is not a policy. Neither is it a requirement. Let us protect every child. Let us speak for them. Let us act for them. Because in protecting the children, we are protecting our future. Thank you very much for listening. Right now, I will be passing the mic on to the next speaker.
Thank you very much for the wonderful speech. There are certain topics in our society that many people knows about, yet very few truly understand.